Where it's no surprise that the beast in the stories of different counterparts is always subjected to have multiple facets.
The clown in the basement of the haunted house,
having these astronomical legs. The Nutcracker in Dollland. The Rat King ostensibly has 7 heads, whereas in Emerald City, the city has multiple towers. I was in Chicago the other day, and I noticed that they have an entire park dedicated to the Wizard of Oz. And as leaving the city, I noticed that the towers took on the shape of Emerald City. Now, if only they were green, whereas the sun was set. The effect of the city's skyscrapers had a mirroring image that made all the reflections of the towers white. White being a blank. It's in the multitudes of complexions where it would make complex arenas. And lensing a magnifying glass doubles as a looking glass. It's in desolate locations where pilots, when they do barrel rolls, oftentimes forget which direction the ground is at in order to remain grounded. If the inner telecommunications were non-existent, what a claim would the land encumber? And put candidly, how doorways in spaghetti westerns are larger than life references. So I just sat here thinking, asking myself, if you're not digging a hole, if you're not going up in a giant beanstalk, well, that's middle ground, and in Lord of the Rings, it's called Middle Earth. Imagine if the Candyland board game was the entirety of the Hansel and Gretel's Wicked Witch, or just Witch's Candy Cake House. It was the first door to the entire Candyland, where it's so dark, it's not a shadow, it's not of this earth. So in this context, the luminescence or lack thereof are ironically the differentiation of what buoyancy and froth on buoyancy is. Why would skin bite back? I don't know if you're familiar with cocoons, whereas they're sometimes seen as without eyes. It would be in the Pokemon Metapod, where he would grow eyes. And that got me thinking, what kind of a cocoon, if it were one, could have eyes in real life? And simply put, maggots. Maggots have the ability to see, and they're ostensibly a cocoon, because don't they break out and crack open and a whole bunch of little flies pop out of them? That's sort of like a egg hatching, but the egg has an entire embodiment like Metapod in Pokemon. So when biting back, though, it would be somewhat of a case where you don't make it out of the case. Let me explain. Some cocoons occur and they're duds, and then the thing inside of it succumbs to a long drawn-out sleep, like Sleeping Beauty if she was never awoken. This is the case where things inside of cocoons don't make it out. Hansel and Gretel, it's the same where the witch is blind and she has to touch the little boy's finger to see if he is fat enough. This is how spiders act when they tap the ground. It's like a snake slipping out his tongue and wiggling it. They're reading the land. And this is what the cream of the crop is when you're the fertilizer dung. You have to read it from doing things that are sneaky, such as wrapping yourself in something that you aren't. The thing is distasteful is having a whole bunch of expensive equipment
try to figure out something that you can't with a pen and a pencil. There's no better example than detectors made in Switzerland, Geneva, are constructs dug deep into the Earth's crust in order to try to interfere with WIMPs, weakly interacting particles. These WIMPs are a horse of a different color, but are all the same as old dogs that can't figure out new tricks. The one-trick pony would be just the same as a spider hole and the bottom of a rabbit hole. In the movie It, you see what's inside of his spider hole is inside of the basement. In Alice in Wonderland, she falls through a rabbit hole, which ostensibly the entire rabbit hole is the makeup of an entire landscape, that of which is found in the eye of a tornado, where Dorothy is shot through an entire land of Oz within the makeup of a tornado in its eye. In the book Holes, what would happen if it was crossed over with the movie Dune? It would almost make sense that it would if he kept digging. Like batteries, when they go out and then you're not done recording, but then you're not even really recording because before the battery goes out, you lost all the storage, so you're not allowed to use anymore. So all the functions are obsolete, and the battery going low makes the device work worse. So that's the opposite end, which would be like a line of sight to the speed of light, because its chaotic dystrophies are being orchestrated, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference because the red and blue shifts are unable to be seen in a device currently because their makeup isn't able to be utilized through the bare eyes. A bear's eyes, and bears are great at hibernating, so could they encumber something we couldn't when it comes to a chaotic dystrophy? Probably. But what would that be? One way is how I see it is an entanglement and a double slit experiment. The double slit experiment within entanglement, one and the same. It's almost as if the speed of light, if there was an anti-everything, it would be a line of sight. Whereas with the speed of light, the opposite end would be going in reverse at the speed of light. This is succumbed to chaotic dystrophy, whereas it's the resemblance of the opposite end. One thing that would be an occurrence is red and blue shifting. Anything that's moving, which all has motions, also has spin induced in it. Not literally, but stowed up in it. Quite the same. With this, an encumber is a mental capacity for the second layer within motion, its spin. The line of sight is anywhere where the speed of light is under. Since nothing can travel above the speed of light, you're subjected to its opposite end, its line of sight. With the initials SOL, used in the science community for the speed of light, the line of sight, LOS, would succumb to it being its opposite, even in an abbreviation. The graphics are a principle that's so important, is that everything is red and blue shifting, even though you can't see it. If you have like vision such as X-ray, this is what bats have. Actually, they have sonar, but that's just another coloration within the spectrum of red and blue shifting. So you would be able to see everything because nothing is still, everything's vibrating. So everything is conceptually falling through space-time, but with the vibrations of red and blue shifting, you would be able to allocate the symmetry within anything having a holographic. And this is so important because everything is having the spin inducted within the particle structure of its makeup, where it's within the inner constituents and the outer constructs is a cocoon versus the exoskeleton of hard skin. Leatherface, he made faces of leather
but there's these things called skinwalkers, and they're of white ghosts that look like actual robotic legs moving.